Welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Maqbool, back with you once again at 9 p.m. at PTV WORLD, where of course we discuss various different issues from around the world and within Pakistan as well, and try to give you a complete picture of everything that is going on. Of course, the topic of the discussion remains what we have been covering, especially on PTV WORLD, with regards to the very special session, the 17th extraordinary session of the foreign ministers of the OIC that was held yesterday in Pakistan. This was of course a very historic and significant event that Pakistan hosted. It required a lot of attention of the international community, of course, because this was something done for humanitarian assistance in Afghanistan. The people there are suffering, they're in need of humanitarian aid. The country is on the verge of economic collapse, and so urgent action was required, which is why this particular session was extremely important. However, there are a lot of things that we discussed with regard to the outcome of this session, what really came out, and what sort of measures still require to be done in terms of changing the situation in Afghanistan. A very important one, of course, is the mechanism of providing aid to the people of Afghanistan, since a lot of the countries do not want to engage directly with the Taliban regime in Afghanistan, and the issue of recognition still remains. The issue of inclusivity and women's rights and their access to education and jobs also remains. This, of course, is part of the commitments that the Taliban regime have made to the international community. And, of course, then the response from the international community is also required with regards to providing aid to the people in Afghanistan, coming up with a solution that puts these issues at the back end for the time being in order to help the people in Afghanistan. Whether or not we've moved a step forward with regards to this and other measures that need to be taken for helping the people in Afghanistan is, of course, still a question mark. It was a good step forward, but it's just one step, and we need a lot of the issues still that need to be resolved. So a lot of action is still required, and we're going to discuss in detail what that is and how and when and where to proceed from now that this special session is over. This, of course, will be the major points of discussion today. We'll also be taking a look at the way that the international community has viewed Pakistan's role, has viewed this special OIC session, and the kind of coverage it has received in international media. What really is the world thinking and talking about with regards to this session. So it's not just us who is saying that this is an important event. We want to also hear feedback from the international community as to what they think about this special session. To discuss all of these issues and beyond, we have, of course, been joined by Mr. Farrukh Pitafi and Raja Faisal, regular analysts on the show. Thank you very much for being with us once again. And we will also be joined by our experts on Skype, and I'll introduce them as well as we progress in the show. We've been joined by Mr. Tariq Farhadi, who's also a very regular guest on our show. He's an Afghan affairs expert. And we've also been joined by Lieutenant General retired Naeem Khalid Lodi, who's also a former national security advisor. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being with us on the show today. Of course, the important discussion revolves around the OIC session. We have discussed at length what came out of it, what sort of expectations were there, have they been met or not. But I want to focus on, of course, the important factors regarding the fact that the declaration that has come out from the OIC resolution is still short on specifics, still does not give a financial figure or a number as to how to move ahead. We know that there is a mechanism that has been spoken about with regards to the IDB, putting up a special account, and that to be used as a way, as a cover for the international community to give money to the people in Afghanistan without engaging directly with the Taliban regime. How much of that can be possible, and when can that be possible, is what I'd like to start off with. Mr. Tariq Farhadi, we were also discussing similar questions yesterday. This particular mechanism to collect the funds is there, but of course there is so much that remains when we talk about how that is going to translate into providing aid to the people in Afghanistan. What is the next step forward in terms of taking this ahead and actually giving the money to the people in Afghanistan? We know that there is a 3-month period that we can see, but what do you think about the fact that in this time, can we really move forward with this strategy?
Greetings to yourselves and our dear guests. Look, in these conferences, these are political conferences. If I was younger, I would be much more excited about it. But I have been to so many of them that I consider them political tamashas. The outcomes are not measurable. The money pledged is not measurable. The trust fund that the OIC has announced will not be used by the World Bank or the UN, so there will be two different channels. This is a OIC trust fund that has been announced, and the OIC has trust funds for Somalia, for Syria, for Palestine, for Ethiopia, and more than there are hours in the day. In the final declaration, I did find that the Taliban were asked for the broad-based government. They were asked for the right of women, and they were asked to be tougher on dealing with terrorist elements. So the declaration, for me, had the elements I was looking for. The money and the measuring elements, measurable elements were not there, but that I had said that 2 nights ago that my expectations are not high.
Tariq, regarding this, what if I say that, normally what happens is if we talk about the donations, of course, for the donations, we can have a donors conference, donor countries conference. Of course, this conference, when we talk about it, the intentions of Pakistan were to bring the Muslim world along with the countries that matter so much in the region, especially China, Russia, America, Britain, all of them, they were here, plus the Muslim countries, they were here. Pakistan's intentions, don't you think that Pakistan's intention was only to highlight whatever is going on in Afghanistan and then later on talking about what funds they would be requiring and how to have a mechanism to actually deliver the funds to people of Afghanistan just to counter the humanitarian crisis that we are having right there? And OIC opening an account for the donors to attract the donors, don't you think that it is enough of the achievement for the Pakistan and for people of Afghanistan as well?
Look, you like my comments for its candor. Allow me to say that if Pakistan lobbies too much for the Taliban, it is counterproductive for Pakistan itself. Taliban are asking for things that are dangerous in Afghanistan, and their friends in Pakistan are asking for things that could be dangerous for Pakistan someday. On the evening where acting foreign minister Muttaqi came, and instead of meeting with foreign minister who had traveled from far away, he went and visited with Maulana Fazlur Rahman. That was a very bad signal in my mind. And it was not good. It should not be construed as Pakistan is trying to absolutely justify the Taliban government to the world.
Mr. Lodi, I want to put this question forward with regards to Pakistan's perspective and the way its role is being looked at. We discussed this before as well, that there were, of course, questions in the past, and perhaps they still remain as to what Pakistan's role really is with regards to the Taliban regime in Afghanistan. This was an important event to, of course, change that and for the world to realize that Pakistan is a peace facilitator, as it has always been with reference to Afghanistan. Do you think that this particular conference, as Mr. Tariq Farhadi was saying, or the way that Pakistan advocates for the people of Afghanistan puts further questions on this instead of resolving them?
Thank you very much. First of all, a sentence or two about the appreciation that I would like to express. The way it was conducted, the professionalism of our Foreign Office in such a short period of time to, collect all the people and to look after them and then to make them, sit together and all that. This is a great achievement. And although it was done on the platform of OIC, but in a way, if we look at it, it was an international conference because everyone was there. Everyone who matters was there. That being said, then I would just say, as far as the consequences and the end result is concerned, I would rather suggest to listen to what Tariq is saying. The world was already aware. As I think Faisal was saying, I couldn't see that it was the purpose was to just the world know what is happening. The world knows it very much. Every day we listen from BBC and CNN that there's a humanitarian crisis there. UN is saying that. America itself is saying that. So that could not have been the purpose, the only purpose. That just let the world know that what is happening there. The purpose was to let them know the urgency of the situation. So whereas, all right, we have reiterated the situation, and everybody who talked about it, they reiterated about the situation of Afghanistan, but probably they did not understand the urgency which is immediately required as far as humanitarian aid is concerned. They are already passing through winters
And
and
has
all
that
that.
happened now? Do you think they realize that now?
I can't say. I will come to that, but let me also answer the question which you really asked. I think again, I would support what Farrukh Saab is saying, that the Afghan delegation should have limited themselves for the purpose for which they were here. Trying to take it in a way that to make it expedient for their own other aspects that should have been avoided, and Pakistan government should have laid some limitations as far as their movement is concerned. It was dangerous also in a way. If for God forbid something had happened, it would have been brought a very bad name as far as Pakistan is concerned. So all said and done, I would say there were two big achievements. One, that the fund has been by the Islamic Bank that has been created. Two, that special envoy has been nominated or will be nominated. But what we did not achieve, one, nobody said a word that the frozen assets of the Afghan people should be unfrozen. Nobody said a word, although there was a talk that how to circumvent the banking channels which have been blocked. But nobody asked those who have blocked UN and America that please unblock those channels. If it was a technical thing, as people say that it was technical because they have some proscribed people on the list, who is going to delist them? Who's going to delist them? United States of America and the UN. So saying that it was a technical problem, we cannot unblock it, it means that you are not really worried about the actual human problem on ground.
Right. And Farrukh, we discussed this many times, that the main objective over here is for the money to reach the people of Afghanistan to help them. And the most important thing with that regards was to develop a mechanism. And we see that one of them was suggested with regards to the IDP. But as Mr. Farhadi was saying, that this is something that precedents exist for in terms of other countries and other people who require humanitarian assistance as well. Does this mean this will also become part of a list and will not be taken up by the international community for helping the people in Afghanistan?
Right, and thank you very much, Sana, for this opportunity. While I was listening to all your guests, and I really thought that we are actually asking the right kind of questions. I think it is important to ask those questions, but briefly responding to what Faisal was saying, my humble submission is when you actually conduct any event, you actually at the start define the parameters, and those parameters were defined by the Foreign Minister of Pakistan. The first point was regarding devising a mechanism or a vehicle to deliver all the aid to the Afghan people. That is very important, and it was not merely aid, it was also financial support. That means that there are two moving parts. One part is, of course, taking care of the most vulnerable as they sit there, shelterless, foodless, medicine-less. And the second one is to actually revive the financial system of the country. So there are 3 or 4 important things that you have to remember in this regard. The first thing is that when you look at the overall situation, Pakistan has been trying its level best to call attention to what is going on in Afghanistan. And I think that if some heroes emerged yesterday, I told you that there are 3 countries that have emerged very good. One, Pakistan, because it was hosting and it has gone out of the way to call attention to what is happening. Second is Saudi Arabia, from whence came the impulse of this event. And third is Uzbekistan, which was actually mentioned in the recent event. I think producer is telling that we are joined by another guest.
Yes, we have been joined by Mr. Fahim Al-Hamid, who's an Arab journalist, and he's joined us on the show once before as well. Thank you very much for being part of the show. Fahim, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Fahim, we of course are talking about the very special foreign ministers session of the OIC that was held yesterday in Pakistan. A lot is being talked about with regards to its outcome and Pakistan's role in reference to this very important event. We of course believe that Pakistan has done a great job in putting this together, in hosting this session, in of course putting forward a solution and the 6-point strategy that the Foreign Minister Qureshi, as Farrukh was outlining, spoke about in the session. But I want to understand, how do you think that the world is viewing Pakistan's role and the session in general? Is this being taken as important as we believe it is? Is this being seen as just another redundant conference, one of the many that take place on different issues? Is this being seen as an actual step towards change in Afghanistan? How is the world looking at this?
Yes, thank you very much, Ian. Yes, I can say this with authority that this event has made a wake-up call to the international community, explaining the gravity of the situation in Afghanistan. The OIC conference has, able to shed the light on the disastrous situation of the Afghanistani nation, and it has draws attention massively, I can say, in the international community. And I would really praise and value the role of Pakistani government, which was successfully dealt with the situation, and they have hosted an conference, which, I mean, as for the observers, they said it's a first of kind since decades. Now, the big question is how to implement the resolution and decision taken by this conference. It is very, very important, because now we should go forward. Pakistan has played its role. I would say that all Muslim countries has, unanimously has approved all resolution, especially, the relief material and the funds to help Afghanistan to deal with the current situation. I would commend the decision makers in Pakistan, and again, I would say that it's now the duty of not only Pakistan, the whole OIC members, to implement which has been decided and to move on.
Right. Fahimul Hamid Sahab, since you are a leading journalist from Saudi Arabia, let me ask you, you must be looking at how the story was being covered by the international press. Are you satisfied? Was it positive? Or it reminded you of Edward Said's book, Covering Islam?
No, brother Farrukh. The international media, they did not give projection, the proper projection of this significant conference. And you might agree with me or no, but that the international media have their own interest on the stories and events regarding the Muslim Ummah. I don't think Wall Street or Washington Post or Los Angeles Times has run any story which they're supposed to run, because this was an event and there was an outcome of that event. But again, brother Farrukh, if we blame the international community, the international press, I would not say that it is very right. Yes, we have to blame them. But, we cannot force them to publicize stories which enforce it in favor of our Muslim Ummah. They have their own interests. If there is some problem in that conference, definitely they will project the negative aspect of that. The most important that the Pakistani government, the OIC member, the Muslim media, the Arab media, the Saudi media, the Pakistani media, they are successfully projecting the plight of the Afghanistani nation. And again, let me say this again and again, it is time to implement that and to move forward, because now it is our duty in OIC countries to move on and implement what has been decided.
Yes, Faisal.
Yeah. General Lodi, I wanted to ask a question from you. Sir, what has happened is, in past, obviously last month when we were having Troika Plus in Pakistan, our eastern neighbor, India, it had its own plans, and it actually invited, the regional foreign ministers at that time just to spoil whatever was happening in Islamabad. New Delhi did that at that time. And looking at the facts this time, obviously we were having an OIC summit going on. At the same time, they had regional foreign ministers, Central Asian republics, foreign ministers of them countries, they have been invited by India the same day. Don't you think that our eastern neighbor is still playing a role of a spoiler? We know that while Afghan peace deal was going on, India was playing a role of spoiler at that time. Throughout the time when all of the coalition forces were present in Afghanistan, obviously on our western border, India has been playing a spoiler's role. Could it be possible that India is still playing a spoiler's role when it comes to its influence on the Western countries as well, when it comes to, talking to Taliban or talking to, people who really matter in Afghanistan?
And is the word spoiler or is it poisoner?
Poisoner. That's
Thank you
better.
very much. Now, I think as far as history is concerned, it's quite obvious, and we do not have to prove it, that where all India scuttled the efforts of peace in Afghanistan, and how they side with the regime which was not very popular, the regime which was falling. So whether it was because of its affiliation with the United States of America, or its own policy towards Afghanistan, or its animosity towards Pakistan, or a combination of all these three, the fact is, yes, they kept on trying to spoil the thing, but every time they have failed, you have seen it. So even if this was this effort which you just said that they were all, and you must have noticed that there were few entities, those who attended both the conferences. They were here in the morning and they were there in the afternoon. So basically, and the numbers that we collected, the level of representatives which were here in Pakistan, the number was great, the level was bigger, larger. So I think even if they had this thing in mind, it really failed. But I'm not very sure whether it was their date was fixed after this event, because this event we know that it was a very short notice was given, and it all happened in a very compressed time frame as far as Pakistan's this thing is concerned. But as far as India is concerned, whether it was already decided date or what, I'm not very sure about it.
Right,
but
and I understand. Absolutely understand, Mr. Lodi, and we all do with regards to what India has been doing in the past and continues to do so with reference to Afghanistan and Pakistan. But when we see the fact that we have these 5 foreign ministers from Central Asian countries who attended this particular moot in India as well at the same time when this session was happening, and perhaps some of them attended both, my question to you, Mr. Farhadi, would be that when we understand India's motivations behind it, I also want to know why this particular meeting was attended by those Central Asian states as well.
So on the subject of India, despite having more than 200 million Muslims living in India and Indian citizens, India is not a member of the OIC organization. If I was at the Foreign Office in Pakistan, I would have issued an observer invitation to India for the conference in Islamabad, knowing that India has a voice in Afghan affairs. The Russians are traveling there, the Americans are traveling there, anyone is traveling there to pull their latest feelings. The way to take care of that diplomatic snafu would have been to invite them. In the past, they have been invited on some OIC conferences as observer.
Right. The idea is interesting, but the problem is that when you are actively, you have opened a separate and a parallel shop, and you're trying to rain on someone's parade, and you brought up 200 million Muslims in India. We all know what is going on there as well. Exactly. So do you think that at this moment, New Delhi government is in a headspace where it can actually offer any kind of solutions? Because yesterday's conference there was primarily about trade. It hardly had anything to do with the humanitarian condition.
Exactly.
That's correct, yes. And India has helped the Ghani regime's intelligence services, and there are some individuals that are rumored to be receiving funds from India. And, so India is playing a game for Afghanistan, but I think we have to be smarter than this and neutralize it in diplomatic ways.
Should we... Brother Tariq, should we concern about these things as well, that in today's India, the way Muslims are being treated and the way the political party, the main political party of India, BJP, in its sermons to the people while they are contesting any elections, of course, the kind of language they use against the Muslims and for the Muslims, should we actually, taking them as they might be a huge help to a Muslim country like Afghanistan?
I think the world is aware now of how the Muslims are treated in India. India is walking a fine line there, I think. And if the condition of the Muslims in India worsen, then we might have the Human Rights Council of the United Nations take a look at this. So they are walking on a fine line here. The world is very much aware. The world also needs India for other reasons, for competition with China, etc. So it's putting up with some of this. And the realities of the world are always gray, not black or white.
Right.
So doesn't it seem like they don't like the Muslims of India, but elsewhere they like the Muslims as long as they are obviously on the western front of Pakistan?
Or petrodollars for that matter.
Petrodollars for that.
On the parts of India right now, it's purely politics, what they're doing about Afghanistan. And also, they also want to make themselves relevant on what's going on in Afghanistan. There have been rumors that they have made some favors to ISK as well, ISIS-K. So all of that is out there, and I think people are aware. Yet people are talking to India because it is not smart either to completely ignore them.
Right. Mr. Fahim, coming back to what the OIC also declared in a session was that there will be a team of international Muslim scholars that will be engaging with the Taliban regime in Afghanistan on issues of importance with regards to tolerance in Islam or women's rights or access to education and such topics. This is something that perhaps was considered in terms of Taliban's commitments to the international community. Do you think that the Taliban regime in Afghanistan would be receptive to such a team?
This is one of the major outcomes of this conference, to form a team of intellectual Muslims from NGOs. So I would, I would say that it is a high time for Taliban to engage seriously with this team and to discuss, evaluate, and come to a certain conclusion, because as you know that there is no recognition till date for the Taliban as a state. So it will be high time for Taliban to engage with these intellectuals, put their concerns, and listen from the intellectual about how can Taliban move forward on the issues which still needs to be addressed. For instance, the women empowerment, the human rights, terrorism, using Afghanistan soil for terrorism and this and that. I would say that Taliban should reciprocate positively because, they have a golden chance to put their case and to discuss and to formulate policy, at least to convince this intellectual group or at least listen from them to move forward. It's not matter now to blame or to say this or that. It is important to move forward to save the Afghanistan nation. The Afghanistan nation is suffering badly. And I believe that this step forming an intellectual Islamic team, it is very clever move by the OIC, at least to engage Taliban in a discussion and come out with a certain proposals and resolution that could help the OIC to engage again with Taliban.
Yeah. General Lodi, since we are talking about this great idea of having this conversation or dialogue with the Taliban, I just wanted to know that while we keep on seeing a lot of push towards dialogue and engaging with them or talking to them, the world, of course, expects some kind of, implementation of the promises that were made. So do you think that this kind of forum can also be a verification mechanism that can actually close the gap between all sides and their expectations?
Thank you very much. I wanted to speak on that. Good that you gave me the chance. In international relations, as far as my understanding is concerned, and I can be wrong, I do not insist on that, you can talk politics, you can talk economies, you can talk even, human rights things, but you cannot talk about the way of life, you cannot talk about religion, you cannot talk about sect. Have we ever talked to Iranians on this subject? For example, Saudi Arabia, my brother is there. They are evolving themselves. Did anybody go to Saudi Arabia and teach them that this is how you should be doing it? West never allows you to give comments on their way of life. So I think this is beyond the mandate of OIC to interfere in the religious matters or sectarian matters or the understanding of the religion or the sociology of that area or their customs. So I don't think this is a good thing to do with any country, whether it is Afghanistan or Pakistan or Saudi Arabia or Iran or whatever.
General Lodi, one of the concerns which obviously has been highlighted by the world powers as well, and of course Pakistan as well, and the neighboring countries of Afghanistan, and which was that land of Afghanistan must not be used for terrorism against all of the countries. So here, a very interesting fact or thing which was highlighted by Brother Tariq Fahadi earlier, that there are stories about ISIS Khorasan being funded or being helped out by India, and we very well know that India, the ambitious India, it has ambitions of engaging Pakistan on the Western front as well. Could we in coming years see that India would obviously try to invest in ISIS Khorasan or to invest in TTP through ISIS Khorasan to engage with Pakistan, as they always had their defensive offense doctrine going on the Western front, sir?
If they do it, it will be very unwise from their side, because once their favorite government was there, they were doing all this and they could not succeed. Now that the government is not very favorable to these ideas of using Afghan soil, and even then if they try to do it, naturally they will fail again. I will not feel shy in even saying this thing, that you must have heard Karzai earlier saying that this ISIK and Daesh has been plonked by Americans there, and they have deliberately left them in Afghanistan. So I think if these countries if they do not change their attitude as far as Afghan politics is concerned, and such interference goes on, so first I think they have lost a kinetic campaign. Now they are going to lose a moral campaign also.
Sir, supplementary question, sir. Sir, if in this course, of course, we know that Afghan Taliban, they are already fighting against ISIS Khorasan. To some extent, if they required any help from Pakistan to engage against ISIS Khorasan, should we do it?
I think the first thing is that because the whole world says that ISIK is a terrorist organization and Daesh is a terrorist organization, Afghan Taliban should ask for the support of the entire world, and Pakistan should be a part of it. Why not?
Right, Mr. Farhadi, what Mr. Lodi earlier was talking about with regards to the idea of talking about a certain kind of lifestyle or a certain kind of code of conduct, which of course even within the OIC perhaps is quite different, and the entire world is even more so. When we see the demands from the international community as to how they want the Taliban regime to act in terms of inclusivity, in terms of providing women rights of education, do you think that this entire premise of them behaving in a certain way is questionable and perhaps baseless and will not be able to achieve in terms of moving things forward? Is this entire expectation then based on something which is questionable?
The Taliban, or a micro group of 80,000 fighters in a country of 39 million people, which is multi-ethnic and has many sensitivities within it, including we have Sunni and Shia in Afghanistan. The Taliban's views on women's education go back to their learnings in a certain madrasa and a certain sect of where they have studied. And they're only, I repeat, 80,000 fighters. The situation is that they have taken power, but now they want to impose the way they see things on women, on way of life, etc. This will meet resistance over time in Afghanistan. And I think this is dangerous for the Taliban because people will fire back at this right now, not with armed resistance, but this kind of pressure on people is not welcome in Afghanistan. And also, everyone in Afghanistan wants to send their daughters to school. And for Muslim Ummah, women and men are allowed to reach the same level of education up to the infinite. And that's why we have Ms. Maqbool in front of us as leading our debate tonight as our leader. So the Taliban should take a lesson from the rest of the Islamic countries, which have invested a lot in women education and have arrived to this consensus that a certain sect's views should not be imposed on an entire country, especially that this sect has come to power as a result of armed combat and not elections.
And that's an interesting point. Let me go back to Brother Fahim. Sir, you're listening, I'm sure, to what is being said. I'm sure that you have listened to General Dodi as well. This idea that it is beyond the purview of OIC to actually tell Taliban what to do or to actually work with them or convince them. It is quite an intriguing one, and I wanted your input because in the resolution that was passed, I saw the mention of UN Charter as well and the OIC's own mandate to work with nations. So is it merely about sovereignty, or is it also about being accepted internationally?
Let me, if I may, before answering this question, I would like to comment on what General Lodi said. It's not a matter of interference at all, neither is it a matter of teaching others the way to live or to teach them the values of Islam. We should not forget that the history of Taliban. So, when General Lodi gave the example of Saudi Arabia is a sovereign state recognized by the international community. Taliban is still not recognized by the international community. And this team is not to force something on Taliban. As Brother Farrukh says, is to engage them in a dialogue, to facilitate and to explain and to let them know what is the thinking of the international community about Taliban. So this is the question of engagement rather than forcing them to learn or teach or to do what we want to do or dictate. Number one. Number two, about your question, I would say that, Taliban has a very historical chance to be given a chance to attend this meeting and to listen directly from the main stakeholders in the OIC about how they view the situation in Afghanistan. If we see or listen to all speeches which has been addressed, either the Prime Minister of Pakistan or our Foreign Minister, Prince Faisal bin Farhan, there was no dictation type of things. All we have said that, let's join hands together. Let's start the way to help the Afghanistani nation. Once Taliban gets recognition, it will be a sovereign state. Nobody can dictate them, provided, Brother Farrukh, provided that the Taliban regime should reciprocate and move on. If they lost this chance, Taliban, I don't think there will be a good chance for them to reciprocate and to reach out to the Muslim countries.
Right,
Afghanistan
Mr. Fahim,
is a Muslim country.
Right.
Yes, please.
What you said with regards to the fact that the Taliban regime is still not recognized in Afghanistan reminds me of what the Afghan foreign minister spoke about after the session of the OIC, that the government there has a right to be recognized. It puts to question what exactly are the general preconditions of recognizing any government or any authority in any part of the country. Do we have a set of norms or a set of prerequisites that actually define that this criteria, this particular stances by a certain government need to be met before they're recognized by the international community? General Lodi?
Yeah, I think there's a definition of sovereignty that they should be sovereign, which means that they should have control over the area. And second important thing is that they should be able to make laws and they should be able to implement those laws. So I think by all these three indicators, they are a sovereign. They have control of the area, physical control of the area. They can make laws and they have a high probability of implementing those laws. So as far as international relations definition is concerned of sovereignty, it is there. It is only political expediencies and political, you can say, differences, which are not allowing us and other countries. And the main problem is because some of their members in the government are in the proscribed list. And that proscribed list should not persist, in my opinion. Those who have made that list, they should also delist those people, or Afghan government should consider it removing those people from the government, whatever it is. But as far as de facto condition is, that they are sovereign and they should be recognized. Of course, it is up to the world and it is up to UN. I don't know if there are any other resolutions which stop you from recognizing it. Otherwise, we have different types of regimes in the world. We have Chinese who are a different regime. We have Russians who are a different regimes. Everybody recognizes them. There are people, there are countries, everybody is against them, but they are recognized. So I don't know what stops the world from recognizing them. I have no idea.
General Saab, since you brought up this matter of de facto recognition, my question immediately, my mind immediately went to the idea of membership. Whenever I apply for any kind of a club and I want to actually be part of it, there are criterion and I have to actually meet that. And that is my need, otherwise I'm excluded, I'm not included. So is it not important, rather than talking about all this dialogue as an imposition, to see it as a chance to actually narrow the differences and include them into the legitimate and de jure setup of the world?
Mr. Farhadi, last comments.
Okay.
Let me finish on a light note. I had a neighbor who
she
wanted
very effectively
to get married.
changed the direction of my gun, but it landed with you, sir. Please go ahead.
We had a neighbor that wanted to marry the neighbor's daughter and was saying, I'm very acceptable, why don't you marry me? This is the situation of the Taliban. But the daughter was saying, and the family is saying, you have to get your university diploma, you have to get these requirements met, and we will talk about it. So the Taliban have not met the legitimacy criteria within Afghanistan with the Afghans, with the women of Afghanistan, with the other political parties in Afghanistan. They can say all they want, they are material for being married, but we are not ready to marry them yet. They represent themselves, they don't represent Afghanistan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Farhadi. I think that would be the right note to end the show. Mr. Farhadi, General Naeem Lodi, and Mr. Faisal Hamid, thank you very much for being part of the show. There is still so much to be discussed, but we're happy to end this on a lighter note. The fact still remains that the people in Afghanistan still require our urgent help. The international community and the Taliban regime both must do something with regards to help in Afghanistan. There needs to be action, and there needs to be action soon. Thank you so much for watching the debate.